Lovely. So, warm welcome to all of you. We are on day one of the training for the Cambridge Union debates, where Indian Debating League is playing the host. Okay, it's absolutely my pleasure to see so many of you joining us today. So, what I will do is I'm just going to tee up the call, and I'm going to introduce you to the trainer who is going to set you through the pace of what is going to happen in the next 3 days. Make sure that you're attending it. Recording, listening later is not helpful at all. Okay. So, though we will circulate the presentation, the recording, but when a trainer is asking you to make notes and hear intently, do that. And like I said, mute is cute. Okay. So, we're going to be on mute unless we are asked to not be on mute and asked to say something. Okay. When I'm speaking, I'm normally not looking at the chat window. Let me know if you all can see my screen now.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we can see your
Lovely.
screen.
We are in one of the largest
Yes,
debates in the
Yes,
world.
ma'am.
Okay. And the key dates for this is we are training between 24th to 26th of January. We will play online qualifiers on 28th of January, and the finale is in UK on 16th of March. Okay, this is one tournament that keeps the category of grades similar. Okay, which means that sometimes in your room you might have an opponent in class 12th. Okay, just briefly about Indian Debating League, because you're joining in for the first time, a lot of you. We are pretty much the largest debating tournament or a community. We've enjoyed training around 70,000 debaters. We literally run 4 tournaments a month. Last week was Oxford, this week is Cambridge. 26 January is Republic Day Forensics, and we are also doing Stanford right now. Okay, this is only in January, but we'll talk more about it later. Right now, we want to make sure that you're all focused on seeing what has the team been able to achieve. So the debaters with us last year won across these universities, and I think the important part is not about the fact that you're winning in different universities. It's literally saying that you must become confident speakers, make sure that you can win wherever you want to. Yeah. So Sanvi, keep yourself on mute. So Yale, LSE, King's, Imperial, Harvard were some of the places where we won. Our 50% of the team in India, which went in for the India team itself, were coming in from ideal debate teams. Okay. So it's also important that we win in the circuits that we play, which means that your schools will have debates, continue to play with that, inter schools, MUNs, keep building these skills, because the skills of public speaking and using critical thinking is very essential for your growth, right? I'm glad that you are all over here, which shows that you already are interested. These were some of the winners in the UK universities. I thought I will just give you a flashback. And the only thing that I tell you over here, and I might sound repetitive, is the youngest teams won. So from India, it wasn't the senior most teams that won, it was the eighth graders, the ninth graders, the younger teams won. Because if you were to follow the methods and techniques carefully, then British parliamentary is one format that you don't have to necessarily have more knowledge. Okay, it's more structure of the mind. So the youngsters who are joining in today, don't feel intimidated. You have a very good shot at it. Okay, just be with an open mind. Frogfoot, I'm not going to answer you unless I know your proper name. Please do rename yourself. I'll come to you shortly. Okay, so with that, what I'm going to do is we have a set agenda of what we want to train. Please allow me to introduce Nitisha ma'am to all of you. She is our expert, a core adjudicator, a trainer who a lot of you would have met, but she's very well known in the Indian circuit for not only training, but for judging, and she's also an active debater. So she'll bring in a lot of value from the circuits and the tournaments she sees. So please keep the pace. Thank you, Anagya. Did you have a very urgent doubt to ask right now?
yes, ma'am. I would like to ask what is the topic for the debate?
I think we'll come to those things shortly when we start training. All right. So basically, Abir, yes. How come you guys have doubts even without us having started yet? Yes, Abir.
No, ma'am. Actually, the problem is I understood from the video, but I still have a query.
Sure.
The query is that so supposing do we have to rebuttal after we give our clear
Okay.
statement?
That's what I'm saying. All of that has not been covered yet. That is why these questions are coming up. Let's just systematically go through things. And if you still have doubts, let's ask them. Does that sound
Yes,
like
ma'am.
a trajectory? All right. Cool. How many of you are sixth graders on this call? Can you give me a show of hands? Okay, let me see. Out of 136 people, 21 are sixth graders. Okay, how many of you have, okay, lower your hands. How many of you have done debating in the past? Any kind of debating? Okay, you don't have to lie. You can be very honest about it. You can also just say that, hey, I haven't done anything in debating, and that's that. All right, 42 people, 48. Fair count. How many of you, lower your hands again. How many of you have done debating in the BP format? That would be very few people, I'm assuming. Okay, 10. Fair enough. All right, thank you. You can lower your hands. So basically, I think all of us know already that this is going to be in the BP format. This particular tournament that you signed up for at Cambridge is going to be in the BP format. BP format is in general very, very rewarding if you wish to actively do debating internationally, because a lot of international tournaments like Oxford, Cambridge, and LSE, they happen in this format. So it's good to learn the format. It's like win-win situation regardless of what happens in the tournament if you understand the format well. That said, I'll just start. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. So basically, when we're looking at the BP format, it's not going to be the easiest thing to understand if you're not closely listening. So if I were you, I'd really listen very keenly, one, and secondly, I'd ask questions. But thirdly, I will do all of this systematically. I would make notes, and when I don't understand something, I wouldn't just blindly make notes. I'll pose a question in the chat box, wait for the trainer to respond, and then take notes. This is to say that you should be writing things down for sure. BP format needs some note making when you're trying to understand it for the first time. But then you're also supposed to be asking questions if need be, instead of just blindly copying what I'm saying. All right. Cool. That said, about the BP format, then. This is, like I said, a very rewarding format. A lot of international tournaments use it. Secondly, this is a format which is team based, which means that you cannot individually participate in this format. A lot of your doubts should be cleared by this clarification itself. Ma'am, can I individually qualify? No, you can't, because this is a team format. Ma'am, is it okay if my teammates prepare separately and I prepare separately? No, it is not possible, because again, it's a team-based format. So because team performance is very important, you need to work in close collaboration with your teammate, and you're supposed to win and lose as a team. That said, there are also individual speaker scores that you get, but the main thing that determines how far you're going to go into the tournament, it depends on your qualification as a team and not as an individual. A team is made up of two people in the BP format. Two people. All right, it's a pair. Now, in any other format, there are two sides on any given topic in the BP format as well. Can some of you please tell me what those two sides are when you're given a topic? What are the two sides you can represent?
Drop and off.
Not
Ma'am,
like this.
opposition and
I don't
favor.
appreciate this, not at all. Everything is supposed to come in the chat. If you unmute yourself, your question is by default not heard. In
And
that
Nitisha, could
case,
you just also move this in a slide share mode?
yes. Okay, I see some answers coming in. Keep them coming, because I want to see the kind of words you use to define those two sides. All right, yes. I think most of you are correct. It's for and against, and it's called different things, okay? But then that shouldn't have to confuse you. So, for example, some people are saying there are two sides, for and against. Some people are saying there's proposition and opposition. It's one and the same things, all right? You don't have to confuse yourself with what the other people mean when they say proposition, because proposition also means for. So basically, the trick of the trade is that there's always going to be two sides in any given debate, no matter what. All right, that's first that's the first important thing that you ought to understand. The other important thing is that in this particular format, and I think this is something that will come to you as like the biggest surprise, but also this is the more like the fun bit of this format. This format has four teams going against each other all at once. This means that at any given point in time, at any point in time, you're going to have four teams going against each other in one room. This means there's going to be eight people in a room at once. Eight people, how? There's four teams, each team has two members. So that makes it eight. So eight people in the room plus the judge. Now, how do four teams work in a format when there are only two sides? Four teams can perhaps go against each other when there are more sides, right? Maybe four against and then two other sides so that every team can get a side. But then how does this work when there's only two sides and more teams, right? So for that, you need to understand that sides remain the same, but two teams represent one side. All right. Just give me 1 second.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Just raise your hand and keep it like that. Once she's here, she'll be here.
Yes. So if you have doubts, just keep them right now, because if we break right now, you might not be able to understand as much as you can in a flow, and then I'll address every question. Don't worry about that. So basically, on every side, you're going to have two teams. So there's side for and there's side against. That's something you already know. You responded to the question in the chat. Now, additionally, in the BB format, you just need to know this one new thing, that one side has two teams supporting it. How many of you understand that? So like so far, so how are four teams distributed? Two teams on one side and two teams on the other side. That's how they're distributed. So two teams on for and two teams on against. Okay. I hope you all are raising your hands because is it to confirm that you understand? Yeah, okay, cool. All right. Everybody respond, please. If you understand. If you don't, put a question in the chat box. Okay, 40 plus people understand. Fair enough. Okay, now let's understand how these sides are divided. So on proposition side, obviously proposition is also called the government side, by the way. Government opposition, proposition opposition, for against. Those are three different ways of saying the same thing. All right. So the sides on government are two, all right, and they are called the opening government and the closing government. Write this down and then we'll understand.
Mama, एक बार आओ इधर.
So there's opening government and then there's closing government. All right. This is on one side.
Excuse
This is
me, ma'am.
side four. Guys, if you unmute yourself, it's impossible for us to deal with this session. You put it in the chat and rest assured that I'm going to come back to questions. If I
कुछ
don't
और चाहिए और उस बैग में या ड्रॉअर में वो है.
Anna, you mute yourself. Mute yourself, guys. I think we need to maintain some decorum when we're sitting in a call this big, right? All right. So what you're basically looking at is you're looking at there's two teams on one side. There's opening government and there's closing government on side prop. Please write this down before you start understanding it, because it's going to be, it takes some time. So I will suggest this, have a paper and like fold it into two parts, two equal parts. All right. On one side, write for, on the other side, write against. Below that, write opening government, and underneath that, write closing government. So this will indicate that opening and closing government are on the same side, which is to say for the motion. Okay. Now on side opposition, there's opening opposition and closing opposition. This is something you will write on the right side of the paper that you have divided. Opening opposition and closing opposition are side opposition. Opening government and closing government are side proposition. How many of you understand? How many of you have the paper as I want it to be with you right now? Give me a thumbs up or something. Okay. Okay, a lot of you. Thank you. You can lower your hands. So now that we have this paper, we're going to make notes on like either sides of the table, right? Now on side proposition, you always support the motion when you're side prop. Write it down somewhere. So if I'm opening government and I'm closing government, I'm going to support the motion. If I'm opening opposition and I'm closing opposition, what am I going to do? If opening government and closing government will support, then what will opening opposition and closing opposition do? Can you put it in the chat? Yeah, presentation will be shared. Don't worry about it. Okay, go against. Good. Smart enough. All right. So basically, you oppose the motion as OO and CO. Let's give them shorter names now. Opening opposition and closing opposition are OO and CO. Write it down in brackets against the names. Opening government and closing government are, what are they? If opening opposition is OO, what is opening government then? In short, OG. Good. OG. And what would closing government be? CG. Great. So that's how we refer to it now, because it's such long words if we're going to say them over and over again. OG, OO, CG, CO. All right. Now, this is about how the teams are involved and what they do. Now, let's say I give you a motion. Let's practice this a little bit and let's answer questions before we move any further. Wait. Okay. Now I think I will take your questions in the chat, if there are any. Can you please send whatever we have to write in the chat? I'll explain it over and over again verbally, all right? So don't worry about that. And against the motion, I don't see a lot of questions in the chat. Are there any questions? Let's see. Yeah, if not internet, can we use books? I'll come to that part. I'll tell you how you can. I mean, there's a separate slide dedicated to it. So let's not answer that question before time. Can you please explain OG and CG again? Yeah, sure. OG and CG are opening government and closing government. And opening government and closing government are both on side proposition. This means that they both are supposed to go for the motion. If you are given the side opening government and side closing government, then you are supposed to go for the motion. All right, that's important.
Mudit, don't worry about the slideshow. Ma'am is just going to, she's talking to you right now. Just on quick question that we're getting from Aryan. Aryan, don't direct message on the group. Just message to everybody. The sides are decided by us. Okay. So when we will put you in the debate group, we will tell you which side are you playing. And it changes in every debate. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
Okay, and Nitisha, if you can just stop sharing and just correct the speeches to 5 minutes, please. Okay, so let's go one by one. Nitisha, you were asking them a question. All of you just put down your hands so that we're taking only the doubts which are coming in. Just put all your doubts on the chat box. There's a reason why we insist that you put the doubts on the chat box, because it allows us to understand where you have reached. Okay, we will keep the pace as per what is comfortable for all of you.
Yeah.
So quickly put all the questions that are coming to your mind. Are you clear so far that there are two sides in a debate? It's always for the motion and against the motion. There are two teams which are going to represent for the motion, two teams that are going to represent against the motion, right? And ma'am was just teaching you what that is called. Government is always for, okay? Government is in power, right? You know which government is in power right now in India? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, we know that. So government is always for the motion and opposition is against the motion. Okay. So within that, you've got opening government, closing government, which will be for side, and opening opposition, closing opposition, which is on against side. Nitiksha ma'am, yes, that's a very good question, and Aya, we will discuss that. So the questions are coming in, Nitiksha, for you to just go over them as well.
Right. Okay. So let's look at the questions and respond to them. Are
Yeah.
there multiple rounds or just one round? There's going to be 3 rounds. They will happen in one day on 28th, and everybody will be allowed to play all of those 3 rounds. Winning and losing does not matter. You will be allowed to participate in all 3 rounds. There will be 3 separate motions for 3 different rounds, and it's all going to happen in the span of one day itself. Those are the clarifications you need as far as the rounds are concerned. What do OG and CG and OO and CO do? We'll come to that. We haven't yet reached that stage. What is the difference between that? Okay, I don't want anybody to DM, all right, because that just derails the process and people can't read your question. Okay, so we'll
Type
just,
it to everyone in the meeting. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
we will all be doing this online, Kabir, but let's keep moving, Nitiksha.
What is the difference between, okay, please don't ask questions about things that we have not discussed yet. Okay, there are things that we haven't discussed yet, which means that they're going to be discussed in the future. Is there any time limit for a speech? Yes, 5 minutes. You're going to speak for 5 minutes. Timings are 5 minutes. Everybody, please listen to the responses that we have for the other questions. After one round in qualifier, we have to go in next round. Yes, you have to do all 3 rounds. And then your score for the cumulative score from all of these 3 rounds is going to decide if you're going to go to Cambridge or not. So it's not just one round. OA is oral adjudication, oral judgment that your judge gives you. So once the judge has judged your round and they know who's winning, they also give you a justification. All right. So they tell you why they made a particular team win and what it is that one team did and you did not, or what you did or the other team did not. They give you proper feedback, and that's called OA. Will the rounds be online on Zoom or at a venue? They're going to be all online. Will the recordings for the sessions be provided? Yes, please. What is the difference between this? We haven't yet come to. How will all 4 teams debate with each other? Not yet come to. All right, I think these are all questions jumping the gun. We haven't yet covered the things you're asking about. Are we how the basis on which you're judged? Again, something that we're going to cover in the future. I'm going to stop taking questions right now because there's no doubt that you have so far. You're just very keen on learning about what happens next, which we're going to cover anyway. All right. So now what this is going to look like is also just one more thing.
Don't repeat questions like this, please. Who's this pasting? Don't do that. Just put your question only once. That's enough for us to read, right? Carry on, Nitiksha. They are young group.
Yeah. Also, just one very broad advice. It is appreciated if today you just listen to me very closely, because everything I'm saying will add to what you know. Tomorrow onwards, you'll be in a very good position to ask questions if you're listening like very like understandably today. I think you shouldn't be quick to ask questions. First, understand what's happening here. So now there are 3 rounds that you're going to play in, which means there's going to be 3 different topics. Now it is fair for you to ask, ma'am, how will we get the topics? Is the topic going to remain the same? I'll respond to all of that now. So listen closely. This is about the topics. One, you will get the topics only 15 minutes, 15 minutes before your debate starts. So if your debate is supposed to start at 7 p.m., you're going to get the topics at 6:45 p.m. What do we do when we get the topic then? Once you've gotten the topic, you will reach out to your teammate, and this could be through a WhatsApp call. We'll discuss about that later. And you will discuss what you should be doing in your speeches with your teammate. It's a team effort. I give you a topic. Let's say this house will ban homeschooling. If you're for the motion, you will like argue in favor of banning homeschooling, and you will make up a case on it. A case is like the group of arguments that you come up with, your entire proper structure, like what you choose to do in the debate. Your side of the debate is called a case. Okay, you come up with a case with your teammate in those 15 minutes. After those 15 minutes are over, you join back in the debate room. We will tell you how that happens. There are breakout rooms on Zoom, etc. You join the debate room. There is a judge. The judge tells you what to do, who will deliver their speech, etc. You deliver your speeches, you engage, you do a debate as usual, like how it generally happens. And then the judge gives you the feedback. That's what a round looks like roughly from start to end. All right. Now, 15 minutes of prep time. A lot of you might be might want to understand how somebody can come up with an entire case or arguments in 15 minutes when you don't even have the internet. Well, that's the beauty of the format. We're going to tell you how this can be done in 15 minutes, and you will find it easy after we have discussed that. So don't ask questions about, ma'am, how is 15 minutes even possible? Why 15 minutes, ma'am? This is the international convention. BB format will always only ever give you 15 minutes of prep time. All right. No internet coaches can help you. Obviously, it's just you and your teammate, and you have to deliver speeches of about 5 minutes. Ma'am, what if I speak less than 5 minutes? If you speak for less than 5 minutes, your marks will not be deducted. People can make a lot of sense even when even if they have spoken for only 3 minutes. So it's not compulsory for you to like finish on time, but I mean finish at 5 minute mark only. You can finish early, but what you cannot do definitely is finish late. Everything you say after 5 minutes and 20 seconds, you get 20 seconds of grace time to complete a sentence if you were midway. After 5 minutes and 20 seconds, the judges are literally not listening to you because they have been told not to. This means that the judges are very serious about taking into consideration only what you say within the specified stipulated amount of time. If you go beyond 5, you're not being heard. So don't think that you can keep going on and the judge is listening. Everything you say after 5:20 falls on deaf ears. All right. Before we move on, let me just check if the chat has any meaningful questions. How will we know if we are for or against the motion? We'll tell you that, okay? So we will tell you which side you're supposed to be. So there's something called the draws, and in the draws, it is mentioned that you are going to be OG or OO or CG or CO. That's something that we tell you. Okay. How does the judge ensure that no one is using the internet? All right. This is always a contention. This is how we solve it. If you use the internet, in 15 minutes of prep time, you are bound to do very, very badly in the debate tournament. Because in 15 minutes, nobody can do effective research. Let's say I give you a topic right now and you're reading about it on the internet. You might say, no, ma'am, I will read about it for 5 minutes and then I'll make my speech in the next 10 minutes. That will definitely not make you as smart as a person who is naturally thinking about arguments. And because it's their original thinking that helped them make those arguments, they will also be able to analyze better. So even from our Oxford data, people who have not done any internet research are the people who have literally done very, very well, which means that it's not about whether or not the judge can tell if you're cheating. Obviously, judges can tell. The judges we are going to get on board, they judge almost every weekend. They go to a lot of tournaments. They know how this works. And in any argument which reeks of internet access is going to be caught because of the language it uses, because of how it's put, and we can easily just like use some of your words and see what the basic websites are from which you're deriving. It's very, very easy for me to access Wikipedia, Britannica, all the go-to websites that people generally have for cheating. So that is not difficult to call out. But the point is not whether or not the judge can tell. The point is that if you use the internet in the 15 minutes, you're literally just like harming your own case because you won't be able to do justice to the debate by using internet when you have only 15 minutes. It's better to use your own mind and what you already know to deal with the debate then. All right.
May I suggest all of you please be off chat for some time because every time you're chatting, you're not listening to what ma'am is saying. So hold on. All of you please pause the chatting for now and focus on what ma'am is saying.
Okay, I also want to clarify this. What can I say in the debate if not use internet research? You can use your own stories. Like if you have anecdotes, for example, I might have been to the slums of Dharavi. I know how poor people live there. I can talk about the slum of Dharavi. If I have been to a party and I've seen most people in parties behave like this, I can use that as an example as well. Whatever comes from your life experiences in the past can be used. What cannot be used is data, statistics, research. Okay. So if you're saying, ma'am, I don't want you to be asking questions like, ma'am, can I give examples from my personal life? Ma'am, can I give examples from what happened in the class? Yes, you can, because those are not derived from the internet. Sometimes we know a lot of things which might be thought of as like research, but you can still use them. For example, I might know that Rwanda is a country which needs development and which needs developmental aid and like help from other countries. Now I know that and I can use that in the debate. The judge will not think that you cheated just because you know about Rwanda. Sometimes people have general knowledge. So general knowledge is fine as well. Just don't copy from the internet and don't just use the internet overwhelmingly. Okay. So basically that. No, you can't know statistics. This is not. So statistics are not like given any value in the first place. So forget statistics. Okay, I want you all to please go off the chat for some time now. This is not, I don't see anybody listening. Okay, I think everybody just incessantly texting, which is so not needed.
Yeah.
Can we use books? Again, you can't, books is research, right? Also, in the moment, what are you going to be doing? Like going to yourself and like looking for the right book? Not quite doable, right? You use what you already have in your mind. All
Yeah.
right,
Which
that's
is
the
why I'm
trick.
telling you that actually in the earlier debates, we've seen the younger children win because they've got a good logical flow of what they're saying. Okay, so don't worry about how different this is from your usual debates. You're not going to memorize three pages, 300-word speeches. That's not how it is done. It's actually as simple as the arguments you do with your parents sometimes, right? I want to go down and play. Now, what are the three arguments you give your mother? So really just focus. It's a beautiful format. Be confident about it. And let's move, Nitiksha. We can now go through the flow like ma'am is showing you.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah,
No,
not
not
right
like
now.
this.
Son, don't break the flow right now. We'll come to it. We'll tell you when to ask the question.
All right. So now look at this. Look at how the debate happens actually. Now I've told you there's four sides, and I've told you I've told you there's four teams, and I've told you which side these teams are on. But then a fair thing to ask is how do these four teams work? Who delivers the speech first? Who delivers the speech towards the end, etc. So opening government is the team that starts the debate. Write this down if you have to, okay, please. So opening government starts the debate. Opening government has two members, like any other team, right? Every team has two members. Now, these two members are called, they're given different names, and these names you can see on the screen. Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister are two members of OG. So let's say there is a team, and in the team members are Nitiksha and Anjali. All right. So Nitiksha can be Prime Minister and Anjali can be Deputy Prime Minister, or Nitiksha can be Deputy Prime Minister and Anjali can be Prime Minister. This means that when you are a team, and if you are given the post, like the position of OG, you're going to have to decide which of us will do the first speech and which of us will do the second speech. This is something that you get to decide as a team. This is something that we don't interfere with. We only interfere when we have to give you sides. We tell you you are OG or OO or CG or CO. That's not something you get to choose. What you get to choose is which speaker you are comfortable being. Should I go first? So maybe I mean, Nitiksha is better at, let's say, listening to her teammate, understanding what she's saying, and then putting it all together and delivering a first speech. A first speaker has to be a very good listener because you should be able to listen to what your teammate has to say. You should know what you want to say. You should bring it all together and deliver a good, effective first speech. But then Anjali might be somebody who is very analytical. So she can just listen to the opposition and she can on the spot think about responses and rebuttals. So maybe she should go second. So this is a settlement between you and your teammate about which speaker role you want to do. This stands for all the teams. So OO, CG, CO. Now, on opening opposition, you have leader of opposition and deputy leader of opposition, also called the LO and DLO. Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister are also called for short PM and DPM. Now, opening government goes first, opening opposition goes second, closing government is the third team, closing opposition is the fourth team. What does this mean? Look at this. Prime Minister goes first, and then the arrow points towards the LO. LO makes the second speech. After LO, again, we come back to opening government, Deputy Prime Minister goes third. And after Deputy Prime Minister, can you put it in the chat? Who do you think goes fourth according to the figure here on the screen? Who goes fourth? DLO. Good, yeah. So there are alternative speeches between OG and OO. All right. These four alternative speeches between OG and OO is called the opening half of the debate. All right. It's the opening half. Obviously, why? Because it's half the debate done. That's where the word half comes from. And opening, because it's the opening teams that are involved with each other. So this is called the opening half. Now, what happens after opening half? There's no tea break. Nobody gets any sort of a break. All right. The moment deputy of leader of opposition is done, the judge will say, okay, thank you, DLO, for that fine speech. I now invite the member of government to deliver their speech, which means that we quickly transition to the closing half. So from fifth speech onwards, the closing half debate starts. This will be between closing government and closing opposition. It will be exactly like opening government and opening opposition. So closing government, member of government, who is also called the MG, goes first. After that, member of opposition, MO, goes second. Government whip goes seventh as the seventh speaker, but the third speaker in closing half. And opposition whip goes as the last speaker of the debate. The eighth speech is of the opposition whip. So you see, you can think of it as like two small debates. There's one opening debate and there's one closing debate on the same motion. But okay, first let's just understand how many of you understand what's happened so far. Like, do you understand the flow of the debate? Give me a thumbs up if you do. Okay. Okay, most of you, cool. Thank you. You can lower your hands. So basically, this is the flow, right? Now, in this flow, you can ask, ma'am, if opening government has already given all the arguments for the motion and opening opposition has already given all the arguments against the motion, what are we for as closing government and closing opposition? Well, closing government and closing opposition, they are supposed to bring in new arguments as opposed to what their opening did. So think of it as like two different matches, but as a type of match wherein as if you're closing, you're trying to prove that your opening was not as good as you are. So for example, how you win in this debate, in these types of debates, is like this. So if opening government has delivered a speech, let's say two arguments on side prop, you delivered two extra arguments, okay? And these extra arguments are called extensions, which you don't have to remember. Just remember them as extra arguments. So closing government is supposed to give extra arguments on same for the motion only. All right. So how you will win as closing government over your opening government is by giving new arguments. This means that the closing government will get the first position if the opening government, if they are able to give new arguments over the opening government, if they're able to rebut their opening opposition, and if they're able to rebut their closing opposition. See, how does a team win in BP then? In BP, this is simple. You are going against all the teams, all the three teams that are in the room with you. So let's assume that we are all OG and we want OG to win, all of us. Like, let's just assume we have gotten this side. How does OG win? OG wins when they get the first rank. Okay. When do you get the first rank? When you defeat all the other three teams in the room. How do you do that? Obviously, you will defeat OO and CO by rebutting them. Why? Because OO and CO are both teams that are against your side itself. You are government and they are opposition. Simply put, you are government and they are not. They are on the other side of things. They are your obvious sort of enemies, right? They don't like you, you don't like them, because they are on the other side and you are on the other side. So you have to just cancel these teams out and prove that you are the better team, because your arguments make more sense. All right, that's how you defeat these two teams, OO and CO. But how do you defeat a team which is on the same side as you? Like, how do you defeat closing government? So you basically defeat closing government by ensuring that you give such a good case that the closing government cannot think about any new arguments against you. So see, closing government wins when it is able to give new arguments. Okay, so the plus sign will indicate new arguments. And opening government wins when it is able to ensure that the case is full, which means that nobody can think about more arguments on side gov now or side prop now, because our case is full. It leaves no scope of new arguments. That's how you win. If closing government is able to give new arguments and better arguments, then you will not come first. Then CG will come first, maybe. Okay, how many of you understand this much? Again, show of hands should do. Okay, let me see. 42, not good enough. Can you please keep your hands raised? How many of you understand? 58, 60, 70 out of 150 still not good enough. Okay, fair enough. More than half of, yeah, okay, good. So basically, as any side, this is how you win. Opening opposition. How will opening opposition win? Which two teams are the obvious enemies of opening opposition by the logic that I just used for OG? Who is OO obviously against? Which two teams are obviously against OO? Good. Why isn't everybody responding though? Yeah, good. Fair enough. And who is CO obviously against? Which two teams? Okay, good. Yeah. So basically, there are teams that you're obviously against. Then there's teams that are on your side. The team which is on your side, you can defeat them by doing better than them. But the teams that are your opposition, you can just do them. You do better than them by rebutting them. All right. So that's the flow of the debate. I think this is the most important thing that we were going to discuss today. So if you understand this, we're sorted. Okay. Now on to other things. Or wait, you have a doubt. Okay, I'll open the chat till 7:15 for doubts, and then I'll respond to the questions that I see in the chat. Let's just all stay quiet till 7:15 and put our doubts in the chat, all right? Let's do that. Also, those who don't have doubts, just think through this, whatever we've discussed so far. Yes, ask me your question in the next 2 minutes in the chat, please.
Just put your question once only.
Also, some conditions, please. If your question is a repeat question, this means you're not listening. I'm not going to take that question. Secondly, if your question is posted twice in the chat, I'm not reading it on purpose.
Excuse me, ma'am, I have a doubt.
In the chat, please, like everybody else. If you're raising your hands, it's not going to work. See, it's very, very important to understand the rules, because if you go beyond them, it's going to be very difficult for your questions to be addressed. If you're not putting them in the chat, I can't take them. So put them in the chat. And now we'll respond to those, because we opened the window for 2 minutes and now it's over. Let's see. Can you explain who goes against whose points? If you're government side, then you go against the points of the opposition side. If on opposition there are two teams, OO and CO, then you go against both the teams. You basically go against the side which you're against. So if you're prop, you're against op. If you're op, you're against prop. But sorry, what's that name? Yeah, Anugya, you're going to have to watch the recording again. See, there's no harm in not understanding the format at once. Watch the recording. It's a tough format, so don't try to understand it all at once. You can watch the recording and that'll give you a lot of clarity. Now I don't want questions coming in because the window's closed. No more questions. If OG mentions, I'm not taking these questions that come after 7, 6, 15. We'll take them in the next round of questioning. Okay. Ma'am, I watched so many videos on BPN. First they introduce the topic, after that they introduce other members of opposition. We have to do the same as them. Yes, I think Shashwat, if you're watching BP debates, then yes, you're supposed to do the same as them, but you're also supposed to follow what I'm saying because different tournaments work with different conditions. So don't just blindly follow what they're saying because that's a different tournament and where you are is a different tournament. Will we get to know the topic when we get to know if we are OG, CG, or CO, so we can prepare as per that? Yes, first we will tell you if you are OG, OO, CG, or CO. And after 2 minutes of telling you about which side you are, we're going to tell you the motions or the topic. All right. Could you please answer my question I've been asking for quite. See, now I'm going to come to it, okay? It can also be general knowledge if you read enough to know. Yes, general knowledge is fine. I've told you this before. Is the only permissible evidence anecdotal? No, you can also share, like, have general knowledge about things. That's all right. Will our topics be about smaller topics such as uniforms, or will we get more global and wider? So the thing about BP format is that you can get small topics and wide topics based on the theme. So theme is technology, international relations, politics, gender studies, a lot of themes. We will do some practice on the third day, so don't worry about it. How many rebuttals per team? Well, as many as you can give. Rebuttals are always good. Ma'am, some smart ways to answer opposition. We haven't yet covered it. We will cover it in the future, Ananya. Ma'am, it is difficult for CG to summarize all points in such a short time, like going against and giving more points. What should we do? Deal with it because you're going to get 5 minutes and everybody does this. It's not like we are uh, following this format for the first time. 5 minutes is a lot of time if we use it strategically. So use 2 minutes for rebutting, 2 minutes for your own case, like that. How will OG or OO win if they don't know what CG and CO will say? Well, they're supposed to predict. They're supposed to think about what I would have said had I been closing. So there's a lot of prediction, imagination that comes into play now. Yeah, that's a good question though. Okay. Ma'am, like you aid that the, like you said, that OG has to think such a case that CG can't answer, but how does the OG know that how much knowledge they are having? Same question as I gave for Navya's question. I'm sorry, same answer as I gave for Navya's question. You're going to have to predict some imagination. What would I do if I was that team? Yeah. As we have written opening government, it will have 2 members, right? Yes. What should we do if we think another team has an advantage? No team has an advantage. You should snap out of that delusion. Okay. Do OG and CG not compete? OG and CG compete. So basically, if you're OG, you can't let CG win by giving new arguments. So you predict what CG might say and you try to give a very good case so that CG cannot come up with new arguments. And CG wins over OG.
Everybody wants to be Kavisha's friend, I guess. Kehte, now will you be my friend? That
And
girl is sending.
can we mute the mom?
Can we be on
I
mute?
thought
Hello, hello. Please be on mute. Thank you. Yeah, please carry on the picture.
Okay, what should we do if we think another, okay, teams do not have advantages like that. What is the ideal amount of arguments opening? See, there's no ideal number of arguments because number of arguments don't win you the match. The quality of the argument does. Even if you have one argument and you're able to do justice to it in terms of giving analysis, examples, impacts, you're going to win. So number doesn't matter, quality does. All right. Is it necessary to be on video? Well, it is important that you be on video, but if you can't make it, then it's not like wholly compulsory in BB format, but it's better. I mean, it's a better impression if you're on video and all confident about it. Is there a time gap between speaker speeches? Well, maximum 20 seconds if the judge is kind. Otherwise, I mean, you definitely can't take a minute or two. You can take 30 seconds at best to gather your thoughts before you start speaking. Does the first speaker of O have to rebut PM of OG? Yes, sure. Why not? Sanvi, yes, that's a good question. How do we know which team is going to go with us as in our side? And how do we know if we're opening or closing? The first thing you don't need to know who is going to be CG if you're OG. It's going to be two random people going against you and you have to win over them. That's all you need to know. And how do we know if we're opening or closing? We will tell you that before the match starts. is the OG, CG, OO, CO all composed of the teams we register? Yeah. It's how you register. So basically, there's a lot of teams here, and all of you will go against each other in different combinations. How does the closing side win? The closing side wins by giving new arguments as opposed to their opening and proving that their arguments are better and their case is better than the openings. So is there any difference between the opening part and the closing part, such as format or something? No, the speeches are very similar. It's just that you have to prove that you are the better side. Only OG starts the debate, or O also. Only OG starts. PM starts the debate. How do OG compete with CG? I have already answered this. Can we write notes during the debates according to what the other person says? Yes, please. Note making is a very important part of this format. Are we given a team configuration before the 15-minute prep time or after the... See, your team config, I think some of you have registered as a team, right? So if you are from the same school and you...
All of you are in teams actually. You should know your team member by now.
Yeah,
If you
you
don't
should.
know your team member, then you're going to type to me on this email ID that I'm sending you. But mostly you have to mandatorily register as teams. Okay?
Okay, Sanvi's question is a good one here. Is there only one winner in the entire debate? No. So basically what happens is that if you come first in the debate, then you get 3 points. If you come second, you get 2 points. If you come third, you get a point, single point. And if you come fourth, you don't get any points. And fairly so. So basically, if you have three, your points keep like mounting. For
Discuss
example,
that on the third day in detail, Nitisha. Right now, I want to make sure that all of you are understanding that there are two sides, like for and against, government and against, which is opposition. And there are 4 teams which are playing. Right? So today is a day of just introducing the format to you, and then we'll get into results, get into some motions to practice on the third day. So just Nitisha, as a flow, can you just go over what you will cover tomorrow and day after as well?
yeah. So should we just quickly finish the questions? I think I'm
Yeah,
closing.
we'll finish the questions and then give them a flow so that we address some of these questions on results later.
Yeah. So this question, ma'am, what does CG do if they can't think of new arguments? Well, then you will lose by default. So you need to practice making new arguments and on the spot. So that's what you need practice for. But how will closing government know what opening government said? Closing government will know because opening government has already made the speeches before closing government. Ahana, you need to watch the recording for more clarity. Ma'am, what if we get a topic we don't understand? See, the topics are not going to be all that tough that you don't understand. There's going to be no special words in it. Everybody is going to be able to make sense of it.
That's the beauty of British parliamentary. Even a sixth grader will be able to understand the topic. Don't worry about the fact that I don't know, I don't have time to research, I don't have time to ask my mother, I don't have time to ask my coach. You don't need to. It's a topic. If you think about it, then you will say, okay, you know what? I believe these 2 things about this topic, and I'm going to put some evidence around it. I'm going to flesh out those 2 arguments, depending on the role that you are, whether you are for the role, against the role. If you are the first set of teams who's for the role, which is the opening government, then you are starting it and then you're defining it, right? So we will get into the details of that tomorrow. But you have the upper hand of saying, listen, this is how I define the motion. So for example, let me take a very simple example because I know a lot of you are new. I want to argue. My mother says, you will not go down to play after 7 p.m. Okay. Now, are you for the motion or are you against the motion? So if you are the opening government, you are for the motion to say, this house believes that children will not be allowed to go down to play after 7 p.m. And you say that you sort of agree because the temperature is really low. You agree because the mosquitoes are too many, and you give the arguments accordingly. Right now, the closing government is also for the motion, but the closing government is making notes so that their arguments are different from the first team that has gone and given the arguments. Okay, that's how the closing government is winning over the opening government. Whereas the opposition side will say that we completely disagree, that we should be asked to come up after 7 p.m. because actually we are playing only indoor games and it doesn't matter what the temperature outside is. We are putting some odomos or something like a mosquito repellent. That's why we should be extended to. So they should be giving new arguments. So Nitisha, you could take a simplistic argument as well, just to be able to go over the roles once with them.
Yeah, but then the roles I think we'll be doing in detail tomorrow as well.
So maybe you could give them a motion and ask them to think through and see what they come up with, right? But do finish the questions that they have right now. The
Questions
one
are finished now.
finish, then you could actually give them a motion to think about and come, and let them think and let them answer according to every role.
Yeah, okay. I'll just post a motion in the chat.
Yeah. We'll just do it just so that you understand that what is for a debate, what is against the debate, and how do these two teams differ, the opening and the closing. So the opening team, obviously, because it's the first time you are speaking, you can say anything and you have the ability to define to say, when I'm talking about playing, I'm talking about the games which are inside the house. I define the motion my way.
This is very, very easy topic, okay? So this house believes that one must cancel any outdoor plans during the rainy season. You think about this topic till
We
tomorrow.
all think about this topic. I will put it on the WhatsApp group also.
Will you also put the recording on the WhatsApp?
Yeah. So recording takes a little time up to upload, so it will come by the end of the day. We will send the presentation as well. But right now, we want to make sure that you just ask all the doubts on the phone. Okay? So put it on.
Ma'am,
Yeah. Go ahead.
ma'am, we will do the discussion of this topic tomorrow.
Yeah, we will. We'll just pick a simplistic topic because we do want to make sure that you understand the roles and you want to make sure that you understand the format. So all of you who got your hands up, I'm assuming you're putting the questions on the chat.
Ma'am,
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I think for today, if you understand the format, we are very, very sorted. Tomorrow we will discuss speaker roles. Tomorrow we will discuss what the judge looks for in your speeches when they're marking you. And tomorrow we will discuss all the things that you happen to have questions about. So you can lower your hands for now, watch the recording, think about arguments on the motion, meet us tomorrow. I'm going to be here every day, 6:30 to 7:30 for the next 2 days, and we'll be taking your questions. But for now, like I said before, please try to think through things. So it's a lot for today. Do your homework, come back better prepared tomorrow. You'll find yourself asking better questions and like having your questions be clarified through the process of just revising. Can all of us lower our hands now?
Yeah, we have 5 minutes of speech time, Arnav, Prakash, and protected time always is the first and the last minute, but we will discuss POIs tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, the Zoom link will remain the same. And when the 8 people have done speaking, then the judge will give you feedback. And that feedback is called OA, oral adjudication. Okay. We know that you have the capability to learn this. That's why we want to up your level. So you'll find it slightly different from the school debating that you're used to. Okay, so is there any question? Yeah, okay. So for the folks who have got your hands up, I don't see you having put the question on the chat. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask? Go ahead, Samar. Nilesh, go ahead. Atishay. Any questions? Just put up your hand and ask.
Ma'am, will we have time during the debate, like prep time? Like, can we ask for maybe
Yeah.
like 30 to 40 seconds?
Correct. So think about it like this, that when we give you the site, first we give you the site so that you know that am I going to be speaking for the debate or against? Because ma'am is just going to give me the topic, right? So we first tell you the roles. So the roles will either be for the motion or against the motion. So it will be called, government, opening government or closing government, or it is going to be opening opposition or closing opposition, right? And then we are going to give you the motion and we are going to give you 15 minutes. But the 15 minutes is more to say कि